What is up, Watch Fam? I am Christian, and this is Anna, both from Theo and Harris, home of the best darn vintage watches and leather watch straps on the market. And today, we're just going to kind of hang out and with a bunch of watches and talk about it. So neither of us are actually wearing a watch right now, and that's not because we forgot. It's impossible. We work at Theo and Harris. But because we have so many watches on the table right now. We have everything from, Hamilton Doctor's watch and Vacheron Constantin 222 into, Tudor Date Day. We have a lot of stuff here that we're going to dive into. Candidly, all of this is available in the Theo and Harris Watch Shop. So if these watches are pieces that you are interested in, two things. One, you and I have something in common. So shoot me an email and let's have a watch geeky conversation. And number two, head on over to the Theo and Harris Watch Shop. Let's get into it. We're not wearing watches ourselves because we have so many here.
No.
But I guess you can pick one and I'll pick one.
Okay. It's tough. I'm in between two.
Which one?
I'm in between this Bubbleback.
Yeah, it's a really nice watch.
With this gorgeous orange dial.
Yep.
I don't think I've ever seen a color like that naturally on a dial. That's incredible. I'm in between this and the 14790.
Those are both
two very different watches, but I'm really into both of them right now. But I think today I'm gonna go with this Bubbleback.
Bubbleback?
Yeah.
You know what? Just for camaraderie, I'll go with the Bubbleback as well.
Oh, great.
We actually have two at the moment. Mine's very different. Also has a beautiful patina, but a very different patina. A little bit more subtle.
Really nice.
Patina's funny, man. I love patina.
Yeah.
Obviously these two watches are a great example, but I know that some people, don't. I just think that obviously, transport yourself back to when these watches were made. These are 1940s watches, 40s, early 50s. That was the general age for Bubblebacks. And at this time, Ernest Hemingway wore one, right?
That's so cool.
At this time, we're talking about, these watches were sports watches. Mm-hmm. Hemingway talked about wearing his Rolex Oyster hunting, wearing it at sea, right? So it's actually perfectly logical for a Bubbleback to have patina.
Yeah.
And for that, I appreciate when one does. Safe Queens are also beautiful. Mm-hmm. But I think that people have this misconception about patina. It tells this long story about how this watch was supposed to be exposed. It was supposed to be worn and used.
Yep. And even if you look at it from, not just a purist perspective, if you look at it from the perspective of, hey, this watch is different than every other model potentially that came out that year. It's supposed to look like
not potentially, objectively. You can't have two of the same patina. It's impossible.
Yeah. So I think if you look at it from that angle, it makes it really unique, especially if you're looking for a watch that is you. Yeah. That you identify with yourself or with an experience. Which I think a lot of people do. What I think is funny about talking about Bubblebacks as sports watches is that this is what a sports watch was back then.
Yep.
And now we look at this and this isn't even really totally a sports watch.
Very good point.
That's how weird it is now.
Yeah.
This is ultimate dress.
But when the Royal Oak came out, I think in 1972, this was, we talked about it 100 times before, radically sporty, radically different. Even the Bubbleback is fairly sporty given its thickness compared to what we were used to seeing we weren't alive.
Closer to this, right?
And that's even later, but you're right. That's the aesthetic, right? Watches, fine watches were just these thin, often complicated or very simple, yellow gold, white gold watches. 34 millimeters, super thin lugs. Paper thin, lizard strap. And then they had the Royal Oak. It came out and it was this luxury, bizarre sports watch. Beautiful in and of its own right.
Yeah.
Obviously, it changed the entire watch world. This was the catalyst for, the change in style, what the definition of luxury was. Which is super, super, to me, I think it's the watch that saved watches, right? It's the most important watch maybe ever manufactured. Period.
Talking about the Royal Oak, let's go into Gerald Genta for a second, right? We have two Polerouters here. I love the Polerouter. I have a huge affinity for Polerouters. This is another. It's my first watch, my first mechanical watch, and it's my everyday watch right now.
Yeah.
So this watch is interesting when you look at it like that. This was Genta who also designed the Royal Oak, but this wasn't intended really to change. To change watches. And
no.
Was it at the time? Was it seen as a sports watch or as a dress watch?
I think that it was a distinctly sporty dress watch. The lug to lug is longer. They're twisted, which kind of is akin to the Speedmaster, although it does predate the Speedmaster by a couple of years.
I almost think that makes it more fancy.
You think so?
That's what I'm inclined to say.
That's a good point. Yeah, I guess I've always looked at,
Compared to, like,
they
these
call
straight,
it fancy lugs. I've always thought about that. I guess I always think about the Polerouter like a Speedmaster and its lugs, so I think it's sporty. That being said, what's crazy is the guy was 23. Gerald Genta was 23 when he signed the Polerouters, which is unbelievable. Right? That's how old I am, and what have I done?
You haven't built anything.
I haven't built anything. I haven't. And just can never be kind of understated, how important that is, that this watch was the first watch that this man designed.
Yeah.
And he went on to have maybe the most prolific career in watches. We're talking about this transition between sport and dress, right? There were tanks. That was the traditional style. We have one by Seiko here. That was the original dress watch, right? Kind of. Then we got a little bit sportier with the Bubbleback. That was a more hefty, durable, obviously waterproof, still dress watch. Then we went into the likes of the Royal Oak and the Nautilus and even the 222. But there were certain designs, that from, their inception really until today, really do ride that line pretty well. And I don't think that there's a case that does it better than the Oyster. Oyster case was introduced in 1926, I believe. You marketed as the first waterproof watch. Not necessarily true. There are other watches, that had, water resistance. No watch is waterproof completely. But I think that, what Rolex managed to do with this Oyster was not its resistance to water. That's also technically impressive. But to this day, almost 100 years later, 90 years later, 89 years later, we've still got this design. It's largely remained unchanged, despite being used in thousands of different iterations by both Rolex and Tudor, not to mention hundreds of copycats, and it's still relevant, right? The case does not need to be changed. I think we've got three different styles here going, and it kind of and they're all the same. It's all Oyster, right? But it shows you just how versatile they are, right? You've got a classic 1600 Datejust.
I love this example.
Obviously, on a strap, it's a little bit more casual. On a Jubilee bracelet, a little bit more formal, right? But still fairly in the middle. Then the brother, Tudor, in this jumbo variant, try that on. I mean, although it's a 38 millimeter watch, it's huge. This is the size Rolex should be making. Right now,
this
Rolex,
is big.
It's huge. It's unbelievable. Right now, Rolex makes them, in Datejust in 36 and in 40. And I think that 38 is the right size.
I love that they ride the line so well. You know what I mean? Between sport and dress. And I think that even when you have a model like this that literally has diamonds on the dial.
Yeah, two-tone
it's still
Oyster bracelet.
Like chunky and tough a little bit, even though it's two-tone with diamonds.
And that's definitely, what most people think is a woman's watch. It's two-tone, obviously diamonds.
That's so funny.
It's more feminine than it is masculine. That being said, you tell me how it looks. I happen to like it on my wrist. Yeah. I happen to like diamonds quite a bit.
And I think that the way that example is done is very tasteful.
I think it looks wonderful on my wrist.
It does.
I picked out all these watches for today, and I just wanted to kind of bring this, collection that's representative of watch history.
Yeah.
Right? Although certainly not all the most important models ever made aren't here. We don't have any Nautiluses on the table. We don't have any datagraphs on the table.
Right.
Maybe someday soon. Stay tuned. But it's still representative of the evolution, right? And that's fun. Yeah. It's fun, whether you like the old stuff or not, whether you like the Royal Oaks or not. I think they're too industrial, whatever. The fact is, it's cool to watch how designers evolved, to fit or to form the public's taste. It's pretty cool.
It's pretty cool.
That's what interests me about watches so much.
Yeah, and one of the most exciting things about watches is that we have these examples from the 30s, from the 40s, and they're fully intact and working. And if you don't like them, that's fine. But if you do, you can get one and you can wear it and it can work.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And that's incredible.
I think it's especially kind of important when it's an heirloom. It's cool that you're able to, having grandma's pot is very cool. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's great. But having grandma's or grandpa's watch on your wrist every day, that to me is just that much more special. I mean, I'm someone that, this is my grandma, this is my grandpa, I'm always, it's my uncle. I like to, I guess the word is adorn myself. go.
You're carrying those people.
Yeah, with the memories, and I think it's great. And that's one of the beautiful things about selling, great watches, not just normal watches, but great watches, is the people that I sell them to. They'd like to be reassured, but it's the reality that they can give this to their sons or daughters one day, and because they've lasted the last 60 years, and they're going to last the next 60 years. And that's just exciting to me. But that's it. Anna, thank you so much for sitting down and having this conversation with me.
Thank you for having me.
I know that while I curate, I think you help me and enable me to, keep pursuing the little intricate, the kind of like details in watches that I otherwise wouldn't have someone to talk to you about. So I do appreciate that.
Well, you're welcome.
All right. Thank you guys all so much for watching. Of course, all of this is available in the Theo and Harris Watch Shop, but whether or not you go there is not nearly as important to me as if you enjoyed this video. And if you did, please drop a comment down below with a particular watch that interested you. If you love watches, please go ahead and subscribe to the Theo and Harris channel and like this video. I will see you all very soon. Close that door to keep the cold air in. Close that door to keep the cold air in. Close that door to keep the cold air in.